Welcome to our session today on digital engineering in retail. So before I start, with a bit of context about the session, let me talk a little bit about Zinnov, who we are, what we do, right? So we're a 19-year-old boutique consulting firm. Started out in 2002 at the first wave of globalization, primarily to help organizations such as yourself come to India and set up, what we currently call as global centers of excellence. At that point in time, the term used was captive, and over time, that terminology has evolved. But today, we essentially call them as global centers of excellence, and that's where our genesis came to be. And while our work started with that, over the years, we've diversified into a variety of different offerings. So today, we work with service providers, we work with engineering majors, we work with startups. So any technology enterprise across the board, we have established engagements with them. We have specific offerings curated to them. And in the last couple of years, have developed a fair number of new offerings as well. One of them being, a sales and talent enablement platform named Drop. Additionally, we have also started an offering last year where we've been helping GCOEs with a light model of center setup as well, where we essentially take over a lot of the initial processes that any organization has to go through. Another offering that we have as part of our repertoire is called the GCOE Accelerator Platform, or GAP. And GAP essentially is a 10-year-old platform, almost like an ecosystem network that had been created to bring, GCAs together to have common discussions. Because what we realized as we went along our journey was that the challenges that were faced by these organizations were fairly common in nature. Each were unique in their own aspect, of course, but there were fairly common nuance to the challenges, and we found that there was a lot of value to be had in bringing, these common stakeholders into rooms and having discussions about what could be done. And that's where GAP's real, genesis came to be. That's where we were formed as an ecosystem network, as a platform that helps, bring together different stakeholders from the ecosystem to have discussions across a variety of topics. For this particular year, we have, chosen three major themes that we want to have our conversations around. The first one is growth and maturity, which basically focuses on how can you really add more value from the India Center. The second one, talent experience and excellence, considering that that is a very critical X factor that a lot of organizations look to India for. And the last one being operations optimization, which focuses on your core bread and butter, so to speak, right? How do you make sure that your costs and other operations are managed well? So across these three themes, we have developed a suite of 16 programs. So if you want to know more about any of these programs, please feel free to reach out to insights@zinnov.com or even to Prashant to get more details, and he'll be happy to connect you to any of us. I won't take too much time in taking you through all these programs because this is not supposed to be a sales pitch for GAP. But just to give you a brief summary towards the last section, right, which is data and networks. So one of the things that we also try to do as part of our work at GAP is, along with the industry POVs as well as the thought leadership we come up with, is not only provide industry insights and query insights to any individual, but also conduct a lot of these sessions where we bring people into the room, as I said, and have common discussions around certain topics that are reflecting your industry. And this is something that we've been doing for a fairly long time, and even in the last year, despite the fact that we've had COVID, put us all in virtual formats. It's something that, we've tried to keep up, and we've not let it drop, so to speak, as well. But we've found that these events, these sessions are where a lot of the real value in the work that we do comes out, right? Where we're able to get you all to come together, talk, listen, and learn from each other in some way or the other. And one of the sessions that we're conducting as part of that today is around digital engineering in retail. So just to give you a bit of context about why we're doing this session, we had done a study on digital engineering in, across various industries in the last year as part of one of our new programs called Portfolio Expansion. And one of the sectors that we looked at was the retail sector. And the story for this particular sector was quite unique in its regard. And this was common to a lot of the other sectors like healthcare as well as communication. But what we found was that in a sector like retail, the scale of digital investment that was being made greatly accelerated during the period of COVID. And that itself was a fairly interesting insight because this was an industry that was anyway undergoing significant digital transformation. And for it to get accelerated even further meant that, there was a lot that was happening in the space all of a sudden. And what we also saw was that Indian GCOEs, the entities that were being set up in India to drive that technology strategy, were receiving a fair amount of support from their global counterparts as well. Uh, and what we heard was fairly common across the industry that people were finding this to be a positive trend that was coming in for them. So we wanted to have a session where we could bring you all into the room, have a discussion about how, first of all, digital technology itself has been impacting, the retail sector. So how have investments in digital accelerated in the last year? We will show a point of view from our end where we will present, some insights that we have gathered through our study. We will then actually hear from the horse's mouth through a roundtable where we have four very eminent speakers, 20 plus or almost 20 years of experience between all of them, to talk about how they have, how they witnessed the last year itself. Where do they see digital impacting retail in the future? So what do they see the future of retail looking as? And finally, how are they left, using India as the frontier, so to speak, for this digital acceleration, this digital push that's going to be going on. And with that, we'd like to start our session, with the POV that we have around digital acceleration. As Prashant mentioned, if you have any questions, please do post them in the chat window. Additionally, if you have any comments that you wish to make during the session as well, please feel free to have them in the chat window as well. We want you to discuss amongst yourselves if there are any insights that you find interesting, right? So make it interactive, make it, talk to each other as much as you want to. And we hope that you have a fairly insightful and, timely session. With that, I'd like to just share my screen and take you through our point of view on digital acceleration in retail. As I mentioned, the last year itself, what we saw was that COVID in some ways ended up changing the fortunes for a number of different industries. And retail, of course, was no different in this regard. There were a variety of different challenges that retailers across different categories had to face. Even sectors where there wasn't as significant an impact because of the fact that they were considered essential products, and as a result, they maybe did not see as much of a downturn in sales, had their own sets of challenges that they had to start dealing with, right? There were cases wherein, for example, retailers dealing in your food and grocery or medicines had to deal with completely unprecedented levels of demand, right? There were stockouts happening in products that people would not have even anticipated for. In addition, a lot of these organizations had to start moving to online, organizations that had not even started their digital journey, so to speak. And for them to move from a purely physical format or a physical plus, one e-commerce website format to what was now a omnichannel way of working was a fairly significant, difference as well. And even in other categories, for example, the ones that were not, in the essential products, there was a mixed fortune, so to speak, but the initial periods may have been there was a little bit of a downturn, but then they started to see a push coming in terms of demand as well. And over here, the fortunes were a little different, where in certain cases, the lack of, customer spending, the lack of in-store footfalls was leading to, some level of, bad performance for some of these organizations. There were cases where there was excessive inventory, that was not being cleared. The way in which these organizations had to start thinking about the logistics had to completely start changing. And especially the organizations that had not prepared for a digital push, so to speak, that had not really started on that journey, were suffering greatly as a result of that, especially because they were not able to access their customer anymore. And right then and there, they were falling a lot further behind organizations, retail startups, or as other enterprises that had already, gone a few steps ahead in the digital journey. And what happened as a result? I mean, what happened because of all these challenges coming in, because of the way in which these different enterprises had an entirely unprecedented set of events that were occurring, it influenced the digital spending that retailers were making. What we found before COVID was that the way in which retailers are spending on digital was fairly linear in nature, right? Very common to how most other industries are spending. Most of the fast-growing digital industries are spending. Where we were anticipating that, it's somewhere around 2023, 24 is where this industry will start spending 25, 30 billion in digital. And for this year, we had estimated that perhaps it's only going to be about half of that, right? However, what we found was that COVID ended up forcing your traditional retailers to start investing in almost 3 years worth of digital transformation in the span of 6 months. In the 6 months that it took from February all the way through till August, September, we found that retailers had actually managed to invest the amount they had promised for 2023 itself. They more than doubled the current amount of investment they had made in digital. And there were a number of factors that caused this, right? You essentially had to transition to what was now a contactless shopping experience, right? People demanded safety when they were coming in and also buying products. Your global supply chain in some ways ended up getting disrupted, and you had to ensure that you were able to reach orders were able to reach people at the right time as well, right? And as we talked about, the other factors in terms of unpredictable demand, stockouts, all of these coming in as well. And there were a few factors, few key themes across which this digital spending was made. Select areas where we found organizations starting to invest or looking to invest very, very heavily. And those 10 themes were across, the three major domains according to us in terms of in stores, your logistics, as well as customer experience. For example, we found that, within stores, automated checkout ended up becoming a fairly significant investment area for organizations, where either a scan bag to go technology or, something similar was used by retailers within their stores to ensure that customers did not have to spend as much time, right? You had queues ended up becoming obsolete in some way or the other. People come in, pick up their product, scan it, purchase it, and they leave, right? Extremely quick, seamless shopping experience. It was something that, was already happening in some way or the other. But because of COVID, you had people very willing to, adopt these solutions. If any of you may have even visited your local retailers, say, for example, like a Decathlon in the period of COVID, you would have noticed that they had also started introducing, solutions like Scan Bag and Go to ensure that customers were able to spend as less time in the shop as required. In the space of logistics, there was a lot of work that happened, right? Across omni-channel inventory management to warehouse automation, even in examples of organizations that were using their own stores or other storage entities as fulfillment centers right now, just to make sure they could be as close to the last mile as is required. And in that space of last mile itself is where we found a very, very significant trend coming in, where organizations were now trying to make sure that they could control it through autonomous last mile delivery. And one area where we saw investments being made fairly significantly was in the area of drones, right? Where you had someone like an Amazon essentially get a license to start delivering products using drones. And you had examples like Alphabet, which had already managed to get that license a couple of years back. So they were, in fact, very well equipped to take advantage of this particular trend as well. And with customers also being willing to have their products being delivered through these entities because, again, contactless, right? Ensure that safety ends up being maintained. This is another area where we saw the trend starting to move up as well. And lastly, with regards to customer experience, we found a variety of different virtual or else assisted-based services that were being created. For example, we saw solutions being built out where organizations were coming up with an AI-enabled shopping service. So people who are not able to get that sort of an experience within a store anymore could get a simulated experience by not only seeing like a virtual gallery, but having an AI assistant tell them which products they could end up choosing, right? Taking their inputs and actually giving them recommendations on what they might like to purchase. And one area where we saw a fairly significant, investment again going in, and something that we feel could really define, retail for tomorrow, could be in the sector of social commerce, where we found examples where, because of the fact that people were not able to shop together again, right? The entire retail experience of going to a store or go to a mall and actually shopping with your friends or with your family was not there. You had social commerce, so people would actually come together on these e-commerce websites and make these purchasing decisions together, buy together, participate in events that would end up to retail purchases together, becoming fairly common. This is a trend that's especially very common in China. And we see this having a lot of potential even in locations like India, for example, right, down the line. But across the space of your in-store, across logistics, as well as customer experience, there was a fairly significant trend of digital acceleration that occurred in the last year, so to speak. In terms of technology, what we found, though, was that a large portion of the spend was still towards areas like cloud and big data to ensure that one, that your omnichannel experience was being conducted in the best possible manner. So you had large workloads being migrated to the cloud. And another instance where we found that because there was a lot of unpredictability that was present in the ecosystem in this period, even the spend on big data increased quite massively, wherein organizations who wanted to ensure they could predict demand well enough, they could predict stockouts well enough, were trying to, put a lot of money in there. And another area where we saw a lot of significant investments start to come in the last year was in the domain of AI, where using intelligence to either help with in-store decisions or else with purchase decisions, or else even to ensure that you can help, uh, even in the space of robotics, right? With having your shelf scanning robots, warehouse robots, or things like those, because your workforce might not be able to come in or some other reason. We saw a lot of investment going into AI as a technology area as well. And the push into technology is something that it's a must for retailers, right? It's not even something that needs to be discussed, because you have technology organizations like Alphabet and Amazon that are making inroads into your sector right now, right? If you look at someone like an Alphabet, they have been making investments that are almost enabling different decision points across your customer journey, from the time from where a customer discovers a product to when they actually buy the product and even put up reviews about it or talk about it. They have different solutions to connect that entire ecosystem together, and they have been making these investments over the last 4 to 5 years in a fairly significant fashion, and we see this being a trend that Alphabet will definitely double click on in the years coming forward. And Amazon, of course, there's no denying the kind of an impact that it has had on retail in the last few years, right? And if you look at the way they have been trying to make their own investments, their digital strategy almost seems to be moving towards what we can call an Alexa enabled shopping experience in the future, where you can imagine almost a complete virtual store, contactless store, where you get to purchase most products with some physical destination retail stores present, where Amazon Go is a definite investment that they've made in the last few years. But starting with ensuring that you can have you're able to create a very cohesive omni-channel experience, to optimizing their supply chain and ensuring that they were able to give you your orders at the maximum efficiency. They were able to work at the maximum efficiency, to ensuring that they were able to provide customers what they required, but they will themselves able to get access to that customer data, that very valuable data that helped them define their decisions. They've been taking very, very serious steps across this entire journey to move towards what their future is in some way or the other. Now, there are, of course, different aspects to Amazon with respect to antitrust and all of those things that might end up becoming a reality or a possibility. But from a pure technology standpoint, when you look at where they're moving towards, it definitely showcases what they believe the future of retail to be in some ways or the other. And we have found that your traditional retail organizations have not really held back in any way, right? Because we've seen examples where organizations have managed to use a combination of your build by partner strategies, right? By developing in-house solutions, by acquiring technology majors, and even partnering with tech giants like Microsoft. They have been creating a slew of digital solutions to combat these technology majors as well. And one region that we've seen become a fairly significant hub, so to speak, a frontier, so to speak, for this digital push has been India, where we have seen retail GCOEs having a fairly significant footprint for quite a long time. But in the last few years, we've seen them mature to become core value generators for their enterprises, right? And the way we see it, there are three major X factors that retail GCOEs can really start leveraging to when it comes to India as a location. The first one is the market itself, because the way we look at it, India in some ways is currently at a phase that was very similar to China about a decade back, where the e-commerce penetration, the data costs, all of those factors were very similar to China just before it hit a phase called massification, right? Where the e-commerce growth just boomed all of a sudden. And we believe that India is on the cusp of that particular stage where due to, geo coming in, and as a result of that, data costs becoming extremely cheap for individuals due to the fact that digital penetration itself is increasing quite significantly, across the region. And also because we are seeing unorganized retail also witnessing digital penetration, we believe that India will witness a massive e-commerce boom coming in the next few years. And as a result, we've seen this become a very, useful test bed for uh, not only MNCs, but also, local startups and enterprises that have been piloting unique solutions that can be tested with other growth markets in India itself, right? Where we've seen examples of, say, hyper-local platforms being created, where you're able to, provide any sort of a product just in time when a person requires it, to examples where they have been trying to tap into the unorganized retail sector through SME platforms or MSME platforms as well, to examples where essentially the cultural fabric of the country itself is being taken into consideration, and they're coming up with solutions where social commerce being one major focus, or else even voice enabled, linguistics enabled commerce being another factor that's being explored very, very heavily in India. From a talent standpoint, we're seeing instances where organizations are looking at India as that frontier for end-to-end development, where a plethora of digital solutions are being developed, or organizations are looking to develop these, in India itself. And finally, when it comes to the ecosystem, this is something that we have been talking about for quite some time. But when it comes to retail, especially, and also the allied industries to retail, right? Whether that be fintech, logistics, or even your enterprise software-based solutions, India has a very, very rich ecosystem that's been growing even more so, right? In fact, there was a lot of fear or trepidation last year on what the startup ecosystem in India might look like. But we found that there was really not that much of an impact. We found that the growth that was being maintained by the ecosystem in the last few years will definitely continue, and it's going to persist in the years going forward as well, which means that even in the future, this is going to be a very, very effective location when it comes to open innovation. So across the domains of market, talent, as well as ecosystem, we believe that India, has that unique advantage that it can offer to retail MNCs. So that, in a sense, was our presentation. Just to summarize, right, we saw that the retail industry witnessed a massive digital acceleration in the last year because of COVID, due to a set of very unique challenges. So digital acceleration across in-store logistics as well as customer experience. This is a push, a trend which was coming in some ways or the other, and only got hasted in some ways or the other because of COVID. But due to technology organizations like Alphabet and Amazon already making inroads, we were seeing retailers investing very heavily in technology as well. And we found that India was being leveraged as a very core hub for this particular push. And our belief is that there are three major X factors that any retailer, can leverage in India, which being market, talent, as well as ecosystem. With that, I'd like to, end my presentation. If you are interested in the report, if you want to know more about it, please do reach out to us. There's a lot more information that's present, in depth in the report as well. If you want to know which technologies the spending is going into, how the spend is across categories, geographies, that's a lot of information you can get from that report as well. So if you do want to know more about it, as I mentioned before, reach out to insights@zinnov.com, and we'd be happy to get you in touch. With that, we'll close the first part of our session today, which was the keynote, and move to the part where, we actually hear from, as I said, the horse's mouth. So we have brought for you four very, very eminent, experts, professionals from the industry. These are stakeholders who are heading their respective technology divisions, have 20 plus, almost 20 years of experience in their domains. And honestly, I'm very excited to bring their perspectives forward to you. And we hope that you have, a lot to learn from them as well. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce our panelists for the roundtable discussion on digital engineering in retail. So I'll just introduce each and every one of them in turn, and then we can, have a round of introductions to the panelists as well. But starting off with Rohit, Kaila, who's the VP, who's leading US technology for Walmart Global Tech. We have Amit Kapur, who's a senior engineering director for enterprise system technology at Lowe's India. We have Abhishek Dwivedi, who's the head of software development for Stoke, colleague experience for Tesco. And finally, we have Manish Agarwal, who's the chief technology officer for digital retail at Falabella. So great to have all of you on board. Looking forward to the discussion with you all as well. So just to start off with, if you could have each of you just give a short introduction about yourselves and your organizations, that would be a great place to begin the conversation with. So, Abhishek, I think we'll start with you and then move on to the others.
Thank you, Tanmoy. Good morning to all of you, and I hope everybody is staying safe. Yeah, my name is Abhishek Dwivedi, and I work for Tesco and primarily in the store retail enterprise apps area. Tesco is one of the largest food retailers, fresh food retailers in the world, and has presence across Central Europe and UK.
Thanks, Abhishek. Manish, if you could go to you next.
Yeah, sure. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Manish, and I'm a CTO for digital retail for Falabella. Just to give a context, Falabella is one of the integrated retailers based out of Santiago, Chile, and present across LATAM countries. We are a conglomerate with retail businesses in multiple formats, from department stores to home improvement and construction stores to supermarkets to malls. And in addition, we have our own banks and insurance business and wallet business and so on. So that's our strength. When we bring all of them together, that's what we bring to our customers in LATAM. We started India office 3 years back, and I joined at the same time. And pleasure to have a good discussion today on retail and learn from each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Manish. Rohit, if we could have you go next.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Wonderful to be here. I work for Walmart, and of course, I hope Walmart doesn't need that much of introduction. We are the Fortune 1 company spread across North America, South America, and now significant presence in India, other than China as well. This has been like an important sort of almost like a 5 or 10 year period for us, where we've gone through multiple iterations of change, and we are at the center of what is happening in retail today. So absolutely excited about seeing where retail is going and how many times things like COVID are pushing innovation into the entire system. So super excited to be here and talk about it. And like Manish said, learn from each other. We are in this fantastic industry together.
Lastly, Amit, if you could have you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Amit Kapur. I've been with Lowe for about 6 years now when we started the center here in India. Lowe is a home improvement retailer with businesses in US and Canada. We are a Fortune 40 company. And we kind of specialize in home improvement products for our customers.
Got it. Thank you, Amit. So we have 3 major sections that we'll cover over the course of this panel, just to inform the audience, where we'll just talk a little bit about what happened last year, then focus on what we believe the future of retail can be, and then talk about how India can really position itself at the frontier of this, push, this acceleration that's happening. So to start off with, I think we asked a poll question as well to our audience on what COVID's impact was on their organization, whether it was a headwind, they found more challenges and opportunities, whether it was a tailwind, where there were more opportunities and challenges, or it was neutral. And surprise, in fact, 3/4 of the audience has said that COVID was a tailwind for them, right? Where they found that there were more opportunities coming in than challenges. So, in fact, I'd like to pose this question to you all as well, right? Tell us a little bit about last year. What happened? What did your organizations face? What was it like? And we'll start with Rohit and then move to the other panelists. So, Rohit, what is your perspective? How was, last year for Walmart in some way or the other?
Thanks, Tanmoy. I think if you look at it in many ways, last year has been a defining moment for many, many different organizations. Of course, organizations in particular and world in general, right? Any opportunity, any time that, good or bad, has both a collection of headwinds and tailwinds, right? And I think the real value of an organization is how are they able to handle both of them in a way in which we move forward, not just as a company, but as a society and an industry as well. So for us, I think it has been, in some sense, a net positive. And the reason I would say for that is being an extremely customer-focused organization, right? We've been there for our customers in virtually every single scenario where there has been some form of calamity. So actually, if you go back and look at US, you'll realize that every time any part of the US has been hit with some form of calamity, chances are that Walmart is one of the first organizations that come forward where, people use it for shelter, for food, for various other things. And that has been our sort of story all along. And COVID just sort of helped us help our customers a lot more during this period. So what really happened was, and it's really interesting, in many ways, it was very counterintuitive. So if you go look at it, you realize, oh my God, this is COVID. People are not going to get out of their houses. Everything moves online. All the online retailers will do tremendously well. What will happen to organizations like Walmart, who have an extremely strong network of stores, networks of physical presence that is spread across, especially US? What really happened was exact opposite of that. The fact that we were there in every single society, Walmart is actually within 10 miles of virtually 90% of all of US population. What really happened was that we became, our stores in some sense became micro fulfillment centers for us to be able to help our customers in a very small local sense for not just delivery of goods, but at the same time, help them through situations which are very unique to that part of the country. So if you look at it, COVID did not hit all of US in the same way. There was a lot more trouble in the Northeast in the beginning, New York and all those areas. Midway, lot of middle America, which is, lot more sparsely populated, did not have as much of an issue. And then slowly it spread all across. As a result of which, we had a different solution for each part of the US for us to be able to help our customers. There were places where we, started opening our stores in a way in which it was very safe for customers to come in and shop. There were mechanisms in which we absolutely did not have any shopping in the stores. And we used, like I said, stores as micro fulfillment centers for us to be able to ship goods to the store and then ship for the last mile. Then there were other areas in which we were able to help and get people to do a much more contactless mechanism of checkout and delivery and everything else. We run a very, very strong health and wellness business. That became another core opportunity space for us, because for the longest time, US healthcare system is an extremely compliance-based system. Right. As a result of which, things like delivery of medicines to the home is almost unheard of, in other than just generic drugs, right? Is very, very difficult. Prescription drugs have to be validated and picked up at the store. We actually pivoted around that and worked with US government authorities to ensure that we had compliance mechanisms for especially older patients, for us to be able to do doorstep delivery of the work that we were, of the their pharmacy products that we were doing. So that really opened up a huge number of opportunity for people. Extremely simple thing. We opened up curbside delivery for people to be able to work. So we work with compliance with the US government, with everybody else, to enable many of these things. In UK, we work very closely with the UK government to actually open up a mechanism where you can have a lot of the grocery delivery slots, which were reserved for the elderly. So we were able to build together a reservation system for them. So a lot of aspects that we actually put in together. And as we speak today, we are building the next version of the entire COVID vaccination drive, where you can actually go back, just like, in India, it's all centralized through COVID. In US, a lot of the private players like us are allowed to have vaccination for our customers. And we are rolling out a lot of the scheduling for our customers in a way in which they can come back and get vaccines. So if you look at it, every single step, we put the customer at the center and figured out what we can do with the entire ecosystem of online and offline assets that we had to help our customers move forward. And the customers sort of gave faith in us by really doing a lot more shopping with us. If you look at our financial results, we've been able to help a lot more in terms of our growth rates. But that financial result is really at the tail end of whatever we want to do. Really, it started with the help to the customer, moved to the next step in terms of making sure that the government was able to deliver what it wanted to do to the customers. And then finally, it resulted in great results. So I think that's kind of the story of the last year that we have been following.
Got it. Amit, I think I'll just move to you next, mainly because as a category as well, home and improvement probably was one area where, there would have been a fair bit of unpredictability at the start, right? Because initially, maybe people weren't willing to spend as much, but you may have experienced something different down the line. So tell us about your, last year, Lowe's last year as well.
So I think, if you just rewind back 1 year, right, at this time is when, the pandemic was picking up. And for home improvement industry, spring is the most important season, right? Because people in US pick up their home projects, right, their lawn projects, right, kitchen remodeling, bath refresh, to anything, right? So if we do well in the spring season, we really come out well towards the end. So the pandemic started, right, and then we were classified as a critical service provider, and that allowed us to serve our customers, keep our stores open, right? And our store footprint also, I think, is predominantly more on the rural areas compared to urban areas. And if you see the restriction and the pandemic, the impacts were more on the urban areas. So although there were restrictions, our stores had to adapt to make sure that the protocols, the safety and cleanliness needs are incorporated in their operation. So that was one big change which our physical stores underwent. And then if you look at it from a customer perspective, right, they started spending more time in their homes, right? And as that happened, they also wanted to invest more in their homes, because they are creating office spaces in their homes, because most of the companies started work from home, and kids were working from home. The online classes started, right? So all that and with the US government providing some packages back to the folks, right, they started to invest more in their homes. So our sales really went up, mainly on the digital channel. We saw a 3-digit growth suddenly spiking in about few weeks of the pandemic. And we are right now in the middle of the transformation, both on the business side as well as on the technology side. So there was little bit of hustle during the initial days of pandemic, where we saw that the way customers shopped with us, I think, changed a little bit. There was traffic growth, definitely, as customers wanted to make sure that they are comfortable in their homes. Secondly, second big change we saw was that customers also wanted to have contactless delivery, right? They wanted to buy online, and they wanted to make sure that when they go to pick up the product, right, it's completely safe, it's completely hygienic, right? So the curbside pickups, right, the lockers, right, the less than truckload, so that we can deliver the products back to the customer really in good time. I think that become very prominent. Lastly, if you see, from the perspective of how we operate, right, all of us suddenly in a day, right, went online, right? We stopped going to the offices, and we have key sales events. There were, discussions on how do we manage all of this, right? So initially it took us a little bit of time, maybe a few weeks to get our feet in. But once that was said, we saw the productivity was really good. And I think the zeal to make sure that we are able to serve our customers, similar to what Rohit said, I think that was there. That if you are getting a customer to buy a product with us, whether it is online or whether be it offline, right, we are able to serve our customers. So that was really right in the middle of our theory. One big change we saw was that suddenly our because of the pandemic, workforce had some impacts, right? There were restrictions how many customers you can have within the store, how many associates, right, are coming back to the store. So there were backlogs in the beginning where you are shipping those products back to the customer. So we had to make some adjustments to route the traffic to the appropriate DCs or to the stores to make sure that we are able to deliver those products back to the customer. So I think those were some of the major things that we saw in terms of how pandemic impacted us in the beginning. But after end of Q1, beginning of Q2, I think it became a norm that there was definitely a surge in traffic, and more investments our customers were doing in their homes. So we kind of saw it as a heavy tailwind in terms of how our business responded.
Got it. I think I'll move on to Manish next. So we heard from two, US-based retailers right now. To hear from Falabella, that has its headquarters in Chile. How is was the pandemic different in any ways? Were there similarities in the way you also had to pivot or operate? Tell us your story.
Sure. Thanks, Tanmoy. So good to hear Rohit and Amit on how the US panned up, right? And I think the story is very similar across the globe. And I think the fundamental reason is finally as a human being, as a customer, the behavioral changes are very similar to how you react in a COVID world, right? But what changes is in terms of some of the regulations each geography has, right? I think those are things. And when we operate in a multiple format of stores in multiple categories, right, what we saw was a different reaction in a different format, right? Now, if you look at a supermarket and a grocery kind of a thing, right, they are an emergency services. So we saw a huge lift, right? Maybe not just in terms of early three digits, but a three-digit growth, which is irreversible at this point of time, right? We saw on-demand delivery picking up. We saw a shift in a grocery business where we had to really kind of open up stores, say in Peru, right, and work extra hours to really support our customers, right, and to support the communities. Now, if I look at our home improvement segment, right, now some of the examples which Amit gave, those are true for LATAM as well, where we had to do a tryout drive-ins, right? We had to try out lockers where we can keep our stuff and customers can pick up, right? At the end, finally, it's about safety. Now, one of the things which might seem very trivial, but it's important from a customer perspective is for an example that if you have to enter this store, right? Now, there is a regulation that you can have only limited number of customers within a store at a point of time because of the restrictions, right? Now, we did a MVP in 3 weeks and put it in a production where we gave an ability to customers to really book a slot within a store. So if you have to go and visit to the store, book a slot, go to the store. And it actually drove the trust factor because finally it gave an ability to customer to ensure that, okay, they're safe when they go because there'll only be a limited number of people, right? Now, another important shift we saw was that mobile as in channel actually grew multi-fold within this, right? Now, and the reason is if you're at a home, right, you're typically on your mobile phones, right? Of course, mobile you carry everywhere, but when you're in office, your buying pattern is different. But when you're at home, your buying pattern is different. And we saw a huge shift in our mobile web and mobile app penetration, right? And as everyone says, right, that in digital commerce, 10 years of growth probably happened in the COVID times, right? And that's true for most of the retailers, right? So it's not been a headwind. Headwind is for a learning, for a contextualizing and changing the direction, right? But I think it's more about a tailwind which has happened in a retail sector. And to me, what we have learned is also to accelerate our digital journey. And when I say digital journey, it's not about e-commerce, it's about an omni-channel digital journey. How do we give a digital penetration in a store, right? How do we create a platform which brings a more and more of omni-channel experience, right? So omni-channel experience in a retail world have been talked about for probably 8 to 10 years, right? But this is the time when it's getting accelerated, when it's getting challenged, right? Which has not happened before. And that's the positive side of what is happening, right? And definitely we'll talk more and more about what retail looks like. But to me, COVID gave that shift. COVID gave that boost. And apart from a lot of examples Rohit and Amit gave, I think I just want to add some of these areas. And it also became eminent that how do we support customer more and more, customer care. For us, one of the biggest challenge was logistics. And in that period, when you have a huge supply to make and logistics is a challenge, right, how do you do a customer care and keep up to their expectation in terms of the information and the that was a big dimension in COVID as well.
Got it. I think lastly we'll go on to Abhishek. UK food and grocery as a category. How did Tesco fare in the last year?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So first of all, I mean, for context for people, Tesco is almost 100-year-old entity. I mean, it started during the World War days. So if you're talking about seeing various types of problems, yes, we have seen something from World War I period to the latest being Brexit with COVID happening in between. So food and grocery has been under pressure. I mean, it is a common phenomena, as Rohit said and Manish said, whether it is any country. actually the outcome because of this macro factor has been very similar in terms of what kind of problems it might have caused to the consumers in those local markets. Food and groceries saw the maximum impact because the fact was that you had to effectively look at doubling the the slot capacity, to which Rohit also mentioned in UK, so that we could allow more and more vulnerable customers to be given the ability to be delivering at home, because you have less and less coming to the stores, and it led to a threefold increase into what you are seeing from an online perspective, and therefore again an impetus or maybe an intrinsic confidence within the technology teams as well as the business that the our investments which we are making in retail platform are well justified to support that kind of scale which we want to have, because these macro factors are very unpredictable, and the digitization is therefore helping us get even better prepared for things like Brexit, which is quite a policy heavy driven aspect which challenges our supply chain, and we have to see that we continue to keep our stores replenished with most accurate details, fresh food and grocery. So all of these things have led to the fact that, I mean, Tanmay, if you come to see of it, the slot utilizations were greater than 80% in during the Christmas. So we had a Christmas pressure, we had Brexit, we had COVID. All the theme is common of the fact that how can we, with reduced colleague support within the stores because of the COVID and reduced footfall, but increased online and the delivery slots, how can we have elasticity maintained for this fluctuating demand, which might come from anywhere? Because as soon as the norms are relaxed, there is a floodgate opens on the physical format, and as soon as they are basically removed, are more constrained and restricted, whether it is Ireland or UK or Central Europe, things start to primarily, increase the online traffic. So you have to be ready for unpredictable load on ground and in the digital world. Similarly, we had to start looking at more digital payment, which is more contactless, means that you have to literally say that there will be less of cash transaction and more of digital push, which is coming, which is what Manish was also referring to from their journey point of view. And therefore, not only the digital push, in certain categories, when you talk about beverages or alcohol or things which require you to have age checks and validation, which would necessarily be performed by colleagues within the store for the consumer, we had to start continuously innovate in order to basically do self-validation checks where colleagues are remote and you are able to help the consumer with a seamless experience to quickly go out from the store. So the whole thing has been that when we talk about pay as you go or scan bag and go technologies, which Tanmay you have been referring in the report, the whole fact is that that revolution is happening, but the creativity or the challenge lies is that how seamless it is as a function of the store format, because each one of the retailers present here is not one kind of a store format. They are multi-format stores, and that particular dynamics continues to vary. So these things have seen a lot of innovations and creativity, as well as with its own lot of challenges which has come. But the theme is common, whether what Rohit was saying or what Manish was saying or Amit was saying, the theme is common. We are trying to help our consumers be served a little better every day. We are making that attempt to see that we are able to get them what they need, whether it is online or offline, and much more seamless from where it would have been maybe a year back, where there might be disconnect. That boundaries are converging, and we will see this convergence basically have this momentum because of COVID now.
Understood. I think that's a great point, Abhishek. I think I'll just come back to Amit on the point that you had made, right, about how as COVID itself started, your digital platforms, your digital sales almost saw like a three-digit growth, right? So, along with online, of course, where are the other streams of growth really coming from? Like, where did you witness, growth really coming in during this 1 year, so to speak?
Yeah, I think overall, right, maybe I'll share some more context on where we are in the home improvement industry, right? So Overall, home improvement industry is roughly around 900 billion, right? And if you look at the business, right, it is split 50% each between customers who are, do it yourself kind of customers or do it for me kind of customers, right? These are customers like us who are investing in our homes. And the second category, which is, equal amount, is our pro customers. These are the contractors who are, large building contractors or companies which are managing large buildings, right? Their spend is almost equal to 50%. So I think for us, right, if you look at our business, we are roughly around, 20-25% on our DIY or the do it for me kind of category. Sorry, we are 25% on the pro category, and we are 75% on the DIY category. So from a growth perspective, I think what we are looking at is to, do our investments on the pro category at, in a big way. So that's one of our key growth areas as we move forward. Other Tanmay, as you mentioned, right, the online channel, I think, we have been typically an offline retailer where most of our sales used to happen through our stores. And I think what COVID did to us was, it just accelerated, the transformation on the digital channel. We were already on the way in terms of doing our digital transformation, but with COVID, a lot of our initiatives got accelerated, right? The lockers initiative or the curbside was in our roadmap. Even our supply chain transformation, right, where we earlier used to typically deliver to our customers from our stores, and now I think we are moving to a supply chain strategy where our distribution centers are spread all across US. And even I think we are looking at transforming our stores where, we are emptying our back of the room, back of the store space to see what are the hot selling SKUs, right? And can we ship it out to our customers in a single day or a 2-day delivery? Our stores are strategically located, within 20 miles of radius for the entire US population. So I think we are going to even leverage our stores to make sure that we can do a single day or a next day delivery for any of the products for our customers. Another key area, I think, on the growth side that we probably are going to be focused on is the way we categorize our markets, right? So we have our urban markets, right? We have our rural markets, and we have our coastal markets also. So in terms of, I think, our product assortment, right, and the way we structure and allocate our products, I think that's another key strategy we are looking at to see, we can rightly, market and position those products based on the markets we are in. The other one is around localization, right? Somebody was asking a question on hyper local, right? How you make sure that you are able to meet the needs of the local population. So driving localization is going to be another key factor based on these markets for us, right? Where we feel that we can see significant growth, right? And it's part of our strategy. And last one, I think for all retailers, right? We do invest in our private labels or private brands, right? And we have specialty tools, right? That we have invested in, and those are exclusively available at Lowe's. And we, I think, continue to, build on top of those private labels so that those are available for our customers in our stores. Another key area for us is, I think, the tool rentals, right? In home improvement industry, tools are part of the parcel, right? So we are going to invest on our, tools rental business as well to see, if we can get growth from that segment as well. So these are some of the key things that we are looking at from a growth perspective as we are, going ahead with our total home strategy. And this is a new strategy that was unveiled, last year in December at our investors conference. And these 3 or 4 things are key component of our overall total home strategy.
Got it. Just like a follow-up question on that, are you also seeing any investments coming in perhaps in the space of, say assisted shopping or things like those, considering the kind of space that Lowe's is in? Are you also seeing that becoming a push from your organization in some way?
Yeah, so I think one of the interesting concept that we have doing a kitchen remodeling or a bath refresh, right? These two are very, very good examples if you look at the home improvement industry, right? And I think phygital is another thing, right? And I think earlier Manish was referring to omni-channel retail, right? And how do we bring our physical store as well as the the online space together, right? So phygital is a good key concept, right? And I'll share probably one example. And it's called infinite kitchen, right? Wherein, a lot of times when customers are trying to, rebuild their kitchen, right? They want to look at options that exist for them. And typically, you want to visualize how your kitchen will look like, right? So we have used, technology to provide that experience prior to customers, buying that, kitchen as an option from us, right? So what we are trying to do is have a dedicated space in our stores, right, where customers, after doing their research from an idea, right, come into a store, play around with the format that we have created. These are giant screens which gives you a augmented reality kind of experience. You can choose your countertop, you can choose your appliances, you can choose your color combination, and you can see your live kitchen be there when you have chosen those components, right? And if you like something, we want to be part of that consideration set as customers are finalizing their journey in home improvement. So if they finalize something, that entire thing can be converted into a project, and then customers can pick and choose if they want to do it as a DIY project or if they want us to execute that project. So definitely, some of these assisted shopping kind of experiences are, key for us in our future strategy. And this is something which we are kind of working on.
Got it. Got it. Thanks, Amit. I think I'll come to Manish right now with the same question around growth, right? That for Falabella, where did you really see growth coming in from in the last, year, so to speak?
Yeah, so definitely growth is coming from digital, right? I think that's a no-brainer, right? I think, but the key is that how do you convert that, right? Because stores is an essential element of what you do, and they are not. There is no intent to move to digital, right? The intent is to leverage stores in all possible ways to give a customer experience, right? Now, if we look at, right, like what are the focus areas to deliver that growth, right? Definitely what we are doing is, one, we are trying to build a complete marketplace. I think because I think most of the customers on a digital side go to marketplace, right? I think and not to typically to brand websites typically, right? So we are having a huge focus to migrate to a marketplace model in next quarter, right? And that's a big focus for when a customer types on a search box, they don't type for a brand. They typically type, I need this shoe, right? And that's where a marketplace model helps. So that is one big growth area. Second is phygital, with what Amit talks about, right? And I think all of us have a similar journey on that. The key is that let's divide this into three boxes, right? One is a customer experience, second is a platform, and third, what are the essential elements of retail, right? So experiences, okay, we have kiosk experience, we have a store experience at a POS, right, at a cashier, to the digital, right? How do we merge all of them together? I think that's the one big growth and right to support that. Second is definitely platform, because now you can't look at a platform in silos. You have to look at a platform as one platform for a growth. Then only you can give a common experience. And third, today retail is not just about selling, as I think all we're talking about. Payment is a part of retail. Loyalty is a part of retail, right? And so many different dimensions of what you can do to look at customer as a whole. Can you offer them a loan, right? Okay, we are a financial service company as well. Can you give a credit to in the buying process, right? Now, all of this together, in my from our perspective, will give a customer a holistic view in buying, and will be a kind of a pillar for growth, right? And that's how we look at it, because assortment, in all assortment categories, I think we have seen a good growth now. We had a very good quarter last quarter in many years, right? So that's what we are seeing, and I think fundamental philosophy behind is technology. Technology drives retail, and we all as a technologists have to kind of really focus on that. Then only we can kind of really focus on these growth aspects.
Got it. Abhishek, I think I'll come to you next on the similar track, right? That when you look at Tesco, what really did influence growth in the last year? Where did you see most of the, this thing coming from the positive trend coming from, so to speak?
See, there is a forceful trend as opposed to a positive. I mean, if you talk about COVID, it will be little biased to say that there is positive. It could be positive for few negative, but there is a forceful trend, if I may say, to be neutral, which is towards how can we make experience more seamless, less frustrating for our consumers when they look at the physical format versus the online format. So, like Manish said, I mean, just because a macro event takes place, you would not go and take a U-turn and start to close down everything and become online, or online will become offline. These things are very rash decisions. Radically, they are in theory, not taken in practicality with large organizations. So for us, what has become starting to become more important is that how do we innovate to give better experience and innovate then on the other side from a supply chain point of view when we are looking at UFCs as urban fulfillment centers, and to repurpose the real estate as we have in the stores for a very optimized delivery cost effective mechanism by which we can deliver the food and grocery stuff. The second piece of thing which will come is that when you are looking at all of these things, Tanmay, the basket size is increasing for the consumers, right? So once they come, they want to buy a lot and go.
Right.
So how are we going to basically solve some of those problems to make that more seamless? And then also correlate it with things like macro targets like food waste and the carbon footprint and other pieces, because the more technology you put, there will be more pressure on your carbon footprint goals. The more food you take without estimation, there will be a lot of food wastage. Right. So there are macro factors and then the experience factor from a consumer point of view, where we are trying to find synergy by using our technology platform. So things like if you could prepare your shopping list, come and pick it up from the store. So you start your journey online and last mile culminate it offline, or you basically book a slot and get yourself delivered, or you are able to seamlessly use your promotions and discounts across the estate. One of the key factors where our focus will be in terms of seeing that we are able to balance right level of automation along with productivity from our colleagues, so that the consumers have a very seamless way of getting stuff from the store or online without seeing discrepancy, because that's what is the key. Because the point is, when you started to push online, see, somebody who's 100% online, price is a function of price and promotion, and you are doing online promotions. When you're talking about store and online, the same bag of coffee beans is available on a shelf within a store, and it is available online. Now you got to be ensured that the legal pricing and the pricing and the codes basically data is seamlessly going through the platform, and there is a single source of truth. So our investments will be reinforced into the retail platform. It will only get accelerated to move towards club card loyalty programs, and then be able to again target the same thing as I told Tanmay. It's about the experience, because the stage where we are as market leaders, what we can do more better is that how it can be little better for our colleagues from an experience standpoint, whether they are online or offline. Yeah.
Right. So seamlessness, whether it's an online or offline experience, that's where you're seeing.
Very important. Very, very important.
Got it. Rohit, coming to you last on this particular point, in terms of Walmart, where we really seen the growth come from, what has, some of the major areas been for you?
I think if you look at our approach, given the fact that we cover virtually everything from general merchandise to grocery to pharmacy, all sorts of products in the US, we have sort of seen a growth path in virtually all aspects of whatever we are trying to do. I think the response in terms of all the customer centric opportunities that we put out there has really helped us. What is very interesting in this whole scheme of things, I think there was a question a little bit earlier here also on, the price part of it, right? And I think price has been an extremely important aspect during COVID, because a lot of people have lost their jobs, and and the general spending aspect of people has been depressed, even though in the US, they got a lot of checks because of the fact that they were given a lot of support from the government. Given Walmart's pricing strategy of what we very strongly follow, which we call it EDLP, which is everyday low price, you're not, somebody who goes through highs and lows of discounts and everything else. What we've seen is that the customers have extremely positively reacted to the fact that we've passed on a lot of the savings to the customers in terms of whatever we are doing. That has really helped us reach our customers in a mechanism in which we have addressed the issues of a lot of customers for whom price sensitivity was a very important criteria. And if you look at it in general, in the US, we have had a very strong aspect of supporting price sensitive customers for a long period of time. In fact, our tagline fundamentally has been, saving people money so they can live better. And that has been never more true at a time when the economy has been depressed and people have been sort of looking for opportunities to ensure there is a very price competitive offering from us. So that is one thing that I think we have done a good job in. The second part, and a lot of people also touched upon this here as well, is the fact that there's a lot of innovation that has happened on the supply chain part of it. We have been an extremely strong first party seller of a lot of aspects of it, but then suddenly look at COVID times and you will realize that things like, toilet papers, and our CEO went on and said, we've probably sold as many toilet papers as the entire population of the US during a certain period of time. It was just a lot of hoarding happened, a lot of people went and bought that. Now your strategy of just selling one party, first party solutions for that came under pressure because there were a lot of supply chain disruptions. At that point of time, we went back and said, how is it that we can bring a lot more marketplace players to ensure that the supply is not interrupted for the extra increase in demand for our customers. I think that became a very important aspect of it. Another thing that was very, very critical during this period of time was the entire play around groceries. So we are a very strong in the grocery space, the largest grocer in many ways in the US. And as what we started doing in terms of online grocery, we started realizing that the pattern suddenly changed. So people were buying a certain set of items and boom, on one particular day, the entire, basket changed, if you will, right? People who were very particular about saying, okay, I want to buy this and, I really don't want too many products that are around that. I don't want much substitution. So we have an extremely strong substitution aspect of it. So if you order something and that is not there on the aisles, we substitute your product with something else. The entire format around substitution actually literally changed overnight, right? People were a lot more forgiving on saying, okay, you substitute, get me anything, man, right? I'm not really worried about exact matches. I'm okay with anything else. So we, believe it or not, worked overnight on our algorithms that were actually doing substitutions to ensure that the customers were able to get a substitute and the customer acceptance rate on the substitutes was easier. It was like, get me, like I said, anything rather than just a very close match. So we had to go do that. So, if you look at from a technology space, trying to overnight change machine learning algorithms to learn the new aspect of what the customer wanted, to the supply chain aspect of bringing in a lot more, supply to ensure that the demand was there and everything else was there, to the mechanism of ensuring that our pricing strategies continue to help the customers in a depressed market, but something that really saw a lot of acceptability with our customers on what we were trying to do. So again, any business that you run, right? Whether it is retail, whether it is, non-retail, whether it is search, whether it is anything that you do, if you put the customer at the center of what it is and you realize how the environment is changing around the customers and you build everything around that, you'll always win, right? And if you believe that my goal is to sell more products, you're not going to be able to work around the customers because now your goal has changed to selling product. So retail is not just about selling product. The retail is about, ensuring that your customers' demands are met and you keep one step ahead of it. And as you move your innovations and everything around that, and you keep the centricity on the customer, you will realize that you will always win 10 out of 10 times, right? And that's, I think, what happens during these times of COVID or any emergency that happens. If you build everything around that and build all your innovations around that, you'll realize that you'll always win, because it's not about you winning, it's a customer winning, and you are basically serving the customer. So I think those are the areas where we went ahead and looked at all the areas where the customers aspects change and built everything around it. And we had all the infrastructure and everything. So it's not something that you build one day. You have all the infrastructure. You just pick the parts of your infrastructure that are very important at point of time, switch them around, and voila, you have something really good for the customer.
I think that's a great point, Rohit. A follow-up question to that, right? So there would have been a number of areas where your customers would have had demands or needs that were fairly new in some ways or the other, like things that they may not have communicated to you before. Now, some of these might just be because it's a need of the hour, right? But I'm sure there are areas where the customer expectation has become fairly set in some ways as well, right? So areas where they believe that the solution should stick to some extent. So with that in mind, if I had to ask you that the customer from 3 years from now, 4 years from now, what their expectations would be, and as a result, what retail would have to evolve to cater to, that particular expectation. What do you see that, being, from your standpoint?
I think that's a great question. Let me put it in a very interesting way as I look at it, right? The customer, if you look at the customer's goal is to access the product, right? And my goal is really, when you look at to buy anything, a phone or a chair or a grocery or anything, your goal is to get that product. Right. The channel is not your goal. You don't come back and say, I want a phone online. You say, I want a phone. Online happens to be a channel. What we as retailers and e-tailers and everybody has done is love to break it into channels, because if we are very good in one channel, we go back and say, hey, buy everything online. We're very good offline. We'll say, come to my store and buy everything. I'll give you a great aspect of it. The customer is not worried about the channel. The customer is worried about the product, right? So what really has happened through this aspect is, and this is where we call channel agnostic retail, or we call this as omni-channel, or whichever name you put it in. What has accelerated is that the channel concept of channel has been removed from the customer and the product. And we've realized that if it is COVID, the customer will want online. And remember, we are all retailers. People love to shop in stores. People love the concept of stores. This is not a bank that you never ever want to see a bank, right? I mean, unless, I don't know, unless you are 80 plus, I don't think you really want to. My dad would love to go to the bank, but most of the younger generation will never want to see a bank. But most of the all generation wants to go shop, right? So what has happened is that this entire process has accelerated the channel agnostic mechanism of retail. And that is going to stick. Right. So all the retailers who are saying everything is going to be online have suddenly realized that it is going to be, but there's going to be a sort of reverse of it. The moment things open up, everybody want to get out of the house and really go and shop in physical aspect of it. Right. And people who were all physical said, don't worry about online. It's never going to happen. Unless we realize, oh my God, unless I have a really great online business, I'm going to lose my customers. So I think the real acceleration is the fact that it has dawned upon people that you have to become channel agnostic for you to be able to serve your customers. And that trend is going to stick, right? And that is going to now push back the entire strategies of, should I just remain, online or offline, or should I really arrange my supply chain and everything else accordingly? The second aspect that will also change, very close to it, is the fact that you would have realized that the global supply chain in many ways has also been thrown asunder, right? A large amount of products are coming only from one region of the world, right? That is going to be a big reformulation over the next certain number of years, because now you were realizing that, oh my God, if suddenly my shipping routes from one place get stuck, I have nowhere to address my customers. So a lot more things will move local, especially in grocery, right? The grocery chain are moving more and more into global. I think there's going to be a lot more localization of that aspect of it. People who get it from local suppliers and supply it in local areas, something that we have been pushing for a long time, will suddenly see a greater light of day. And those trends will also continue. People will make sure that they, don't complicate and don't over centralize their supply chains. That is going to become very important aspect for people. Micro fulfillment centers, rather than saying, okay, I'm going to have only one supply center, a distribution center, and everything will go from there. Hey, your supply route, your distribution routes will change, right? So I think all of those aspects will suddenly try to take center stage, and the next 3-4 years are going to be very important for people to understand that they need to use this learning to understand how they actually work around that, and we'll arrive at a space that will be a lot more customer centric in whichever environment you go. And that's what we learned from this whole thing, that we realized that if we used our online and offline and our supply chain routes in a much better way, we can sort of help our customers in a better way, and sort of ensure that we don't have as much of dependence only on one aspect of it.
Got it. So 3 points that you debate was, one is channel agnostic, then the localization of supply chains, and of course micro fulfillment and these other niche areas coming in. Fabulous points. I think Abhishek will move to you next for the same question, right? That if we were to ask you about the future of retail, considering what your customers might want, what they will start expecting, what do you see it looking like for Tesco?
So as we start to look this story, there will be a lot of things which will be focused towards providing more efficiency and productivity gains. So we are talking about the customer. The customer is centric to this whole equation, obviously. But how we deliver to the customer and at what efficiency levels is going to be very, very important aspect. So the journey will be divided primarily, according to us, into 2 portions. One is that we start to transform the stores from being more siloed to more connected. Yeah. So that it becomes much more of a seamless experience, not only for the customers, but also for the colleagues. The other piece is that as we start to basically evolve the platform hypothesis and start to bring the channels together, how we are operating across the channels, as Rohit put, channel agnostic, and then trying to put our loyalty programs in context to the complex promotions, as well as seeing that our network of supply chain, how the small farmers or the dairy producers, etc., are networking well with us from a local point of view, become an important aspect, whether it is going into very innovative and creative things like vertical farming versus the fact that you are able to clearly understand your supply chain base and be able to pay them faster because of these kind of pandemics. So your regular way of doing things will change. We will have to change the process, which means we need to bring agility into the overall system, not only from just offering things into the face of the consumer, but also the process of getting those offerings to the customer needs to effectively change. So quite a bit of impetus will go into things like SAYS, which is like scan as you go, smart lockers, cashless payments, productivity gains and efficiency gains by using more automation within the store, so that our stores are more smart and we can basically get more proactive responses in terms of our stock levels and improving the forecasting accuracies in these times, because the demand is highly unpredictable basis what happens from a macro point of view. So how we optimize across certain set of geographies, whether it is UK or rest of Ireland or Central Europe, and see certain things as a commonality in terms of processes to drive efficiency gains. And then on the top segment, from a consumer point of view, how do we basically see that when we are doing merchandising within the stores and when we are doing merchandising online, we are giving a similar experience from the range and the merchandising point of view, because we are selling the same things online, offline. You can't basically have a different kind of a range input into online versus a different into the merchandising from a store point of view. So it will be all about the fact that how more unified this experience becomes, how seamless it becomes, less painful and more efficient for our colleagues within the store, so that there is a good convergence for a happy consumer and happy colleagues for us to continue this momentum of growth, as well as to support any kind of macro challenges which will come because of the Brexit, which has happened in December and disrupted the supply chain, so on and so forth.
Got it. So your point being that in that entire supply to consumer value chain that exists, the efficiencies that are able to bring in those would be the key differentiators, and that's what's going to define the future of retail.
Yeah.
So great point. Manish, I think I'll come to you next on that question, and then we move to Amit to conclude on that point.
Sure. So I think the stories are similar, but I just want to talk about few of the nuances, right? I think one is that everybody is looking at a gratification which is instant, right? And that is driving a lot of behavior in terms of consumer, right? It's about on-demand delivery. I need in 60 minutes. I need in 90 minutes, right? Irrespective of categories, right? Now those things are changing, and to me, that will drive a lot of the thought process in terms of how we react to that need, right, of the society, right? And to me, what other things are changing, right, in terms of when we say localization, I think a lot of localization is getting driven by the marketplaces, right? Because when you get a local sellers on the marketplace and you have a huge pie which is being driven out of that, right, then that drives the localization, right? And another important aspect which probably I just want to add to what my other colleagues said is a social consciousness. I think that is also coming into picture slowly, right? I think that customer behavior is changing, where slowly we will see changes in how we pack and give it, right? Or how how environment friendly we are on multiple dimensions. So a lot of those social consciousness pointers are going to come in from my perspective, right? And ultra personalization, right? Of course, we keep talking about it, but those are the driving factors. So I don't want to repeat what everyone said, but like these are some additional dimensions which I feel are going to be critical for retail, right? And we talk about a lot of digital experience in stores, video calling with expertise, some of the things we say augmented reality, right, and so on. Now those have not penetrated yet. We have seen evolution in last many years, but I think probably it's going to be test of the time whether they becomes part and parcel of shopping experience, right? In some category it is where you check a eye, you check a lipstick, and so on. But how do you kind of really make that as a part of your behavior, be it online, offline, right? We have heard about this for many years, but like this is the crux, right? And the last point I just want to add is that the bottom of all this is data and analytics, and I think that is another fundamental shift which is happening, because everything is getting driven out of that, is what I will say, right? So I think I just want to add these points to the kitty.
Understood. So data analytics powering everything, ultra personalization becoming a huge part of it, and also a great point that you made that a number of these exploratory technology projects will actually see whether they can be implemented into the shopping experience properly or not. That's going to happen in the next 5 years as well. Great point. I think Amit, we'll come to you last for this question, but if there's anything that you feel you'd like to add as well, right, in terms of what locals are looking at or otherwise, we'd love to hear from you on this one.
I think if I summarize this right, I think we are letting our customers shop wherever they want, right, however they want, right, and get the products back to them in the best way possible, right? I think that's the overall theme that I heard everybody say, and I think our goal is also to go in that direction, right? And some people call it omni-channel retail, right, from multi-channel retail, wherein if you relate it to a home improvement industry, right, it basically starts with an inspiration, right, that you want to do something, right, for your home, and it converts into an idea, right, and then you start gathering information, right? So, and you may do it through any channel, right? You will go online for some research, you may walk into a store and gather your note, add your items to the cart, right? And later on, you might maybe you feel comfortable calling a contact center and saying, I have done this, I've built out a cart. What promotions can you offer me? How do I buy this? Can I do a project with you? So in this, right, we are allowing our customer to go to any channel, right? And if they are into our lawn, right, can they buy the products from the lawn itself rather than walking into the store with the product, right? So I think overall, right, if you look at next few years, retailers will look at how they, effectively utilize their physical space, right? And one of the things I mentioned earlier is, stores used to be the hub for delivering products back to the customer. I think it will remain partially being leveraged in that way, but there are going to be other options that will evolve, right? Where some space is dedicated for certain other activities.
Right.
There are experience zones, and then some shoppers will come and pick up the product from the store. So I think multiple options will evolve, but data and analytics, I think, will continue to play a significant role, especially at scale, right? You want to leverage the scale in the right way possible, and humanly it is not possible to look at all the data, and that's where your data modeling and analytics is going to play a very, very crucial role in all aspects, be it marketing, be it your merchandising, right? And merchandising will continue to play a huge role in your physical
Right.
space. So I think these are some of the things overall from a customer specificity, what I think I feel we will be looking at from a retail.
Got it. Got it. So just to summarize your point, you're essentially saying that customers will be defining the shopping experience, the retail experience a lot more going forward. So their convenience is really going to be at the heart of everything. And also some other points that you raised was around how the existing physical stores that are present for retailers, that will start to get reutilized, or maybe experience centers will start coming and the rest of the store gets used for something else entirely. I think great points over there also, right? Uh, we'll come to the last section right now, and I'll direct this question to Abhishek first. Mainly with respect to, since there's so much happening in retail right now, right? I mean, all of you discussed the ways in which the industry is changing, what you feel it might be in the next 5 years. Now, where do you really see India playing a role in terms of positioning itself as at the forefront, right? At the frontier, so to speak, of this change? Because your organizations have already been investing in India as a location of choice for quite some time. So, from Tesco's standpoint, how are you really leveraging India? What do you see, India's role being in the future as well, so to speak?
Yeah, Tanmoy, I mean, I think so. As India is a leader in many things, from vaccine production to satellite technology and space, right? We are no longer a extension center, right? We are the hub of engineering, and this hub of engineering is getting fueled, and retail will benefit from it from quite a few ways. You have to understand that the retail, see, when you talk about only 100% online experience, right? You are talking about being in cloud. A cloud is a very mature technology overall. It has matured overall. But when you talk about retail in the context of what we and our colleagues here are talking about, we are talking about even the store from a very constrained environment.
Right.
Indians from a particular cultural mindset are built to operate in constrained environments. Therefore, from that point of view, whether it is the marketplace, startup, entrepreneurial innovation, whether it is in the online space, whether it is innovating on last mile deliveries, we have a lot of expertise which our startup ecosystems, the unicorns, are providing, which can be taken to a global scale by adopting and adapting the processes from the local markets, be it Central Europe, UK, etc. In terms of seeing that how frugality, how constraints at edge, which is actually not a fully solved problem today, will enable some of the work which Amit is telling. There is heavy data crunching happening. Now, you can't expect all the data to be taken from a store network to the cloud and then process and come back, because that network is very constrained. You got to see and process and deploy and analyze then and there when you are interacting with the point of sale systems, when you are interacting with the scan as you go systems, PDAs, whatnot. So how do we innovate? From that point of view, India has got a very solid engineering and data science,
Right.
which is also being done in Tesco Bengaluru. From supply chain point of view, again, something where we are making investments. From a digital point of view, because we have so much of mobile experience due to online, it's an added advantage where we are getting a lot of talent for us to help build the mobile experiences out here because of the diversity which we have in terms of the skill sets and the our telco networks are starting to mature now. But if you come to see, they were a constrained environment from an India point of view. So how we are developing better seamless experiences on mobile, desktop, as well as how we are powering with data, forecasting, supply chain analytics. These things, we have a very, very strong pool, which is helping us in doing a lot of Tesco technology driven engineering from our global centers present across Europe as well as India. So we are at forefront of some of this disruption and transformation which is being driven within Tesco from that point of view.
Got it. I think we'll come to Manish next on this particular question. Manish, Falabella is set up in the last couple of years itself, but how are you really looking at investing in India in the years going forward also? And until now, what's been done?
Yeah. So we are relatively young. We just completed 3 years in India. But I think fundamental is, of course, we are here for technology and we are here to make a difference and impact on technology. So we started with digital commerce, but then data and logistics, data and analytics, now building the whole supply chain, transformation driven out of here, right? And then, of course, the whole enterprise ability, what we talk about a platform to omni-channel, where we are using the platform we built for our e-commerce, now using the same platform to drive a point of sale. In fact, out of India, in just 7 months, we had piloted a new point of sale from India, right? So we are here for technology, we are here for engineering, but what we also believe in is that whatever we are doing and creating an impact, right, has to drive a leadership as well, right? In terms of, so it's not about I think it's not about we being operating in silo. We are integral part of the corporate. In fact, the CIO of our company, right, the whole Falabella group was the CIO of digital retail and MD of India, right? So you can see that India is making a huge impact where the corporate is looking at India not just from a tech perspective but from a leadership perspective as well to drive that transformation. Yeah, I'll just summarize to that.
Got it. Amit, I think we'll just come to you with respect to Lowe's. How have you seen? You said you're going through a transformation. Is India in some ways the hub for this transformation? How do you see the role also evolving in the next few years? Your point of view on that.
Yeah, I think, if you look at India right now, we have 50 plus, retailers and, consumer packaged good retailers, which are global, right? Which are set up in India, right? And predominantly mostly in Bangalore. So from a retail GCC perspective, right, we are already a hub, right? And even in this panel, you will see, some of the top retailers, you have in this panel itself, right? So, from our perspective, right, technology definitely, right? Within retail, you talk about supply chain, you talk about digital, you talk about cloud, even store, right? And I'll tell you that, the one of the new things that we did are, self-checkout, modern systems which were built, led and completely from a technology and engineering perspective. That work was being delivered from our Bangalore center. So technology, definitely, right? Data and analytics, we have significant presence, right? And some of the, data modeling and data analytical reports which goes to the senior management are definitely getting delivered from our center, right? The other part, right, we are also increasing our presence on business services, right? Be it digital marketing, merchandising, right? Finance back office, right? We have teams on that as well, which are led from our center. Third key part is, I think, towards disruptive innovation, right? And I don't know how many of you will know about Lowe's Innovation Labs, right? This is an entity that completely focuses on disruptive innovation. So, right. And we have a team here in India as well, right? And we have a program called Construct, right? It's our signature program. And we are currently, doing a tie-up with roughly around 8 startups from Indian startup ecosystem. And this ranges from, your technology companies which have deep tech expertise in, let's say, either AI, AR, VR, and we are also working with one of the startups which is into nanotechnology, right? And working with them on futuristic, how the construction technology is going to change in coming future. So I think if I have to summarize, right, we are definitely leveraging our center for, tech talent, right, digital tech talent, right, and we are right in the middle of that transformation. We're leveraging talent for our business services as well as for disruptive innovation.
Got it. Got it. So quite a lot happening at Lowe's India, so to speak, right?
Absolutely.
I think Rohit will come to you last on this particular point, but Walmart, global tech, of course, the core technology arm of Walmart. I think India, if I'm not wrong, has the highest headcount, the greatest footprint as well in terms of digital talent for the thing for the organization. Yeah. So how is India being perceived out as a location of choice for Walmart? In what aspects? And how do you see it evolving as well, right, going forward?
Yeah, I think few things there. Number one, if you look at it, right, I mean, the place where we are today,
Mm-hmm.
we are almost in a situation where the future of retail is getting created as we speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you'll realize many years from now, when you look back, this would have been a very pivoting moment for retail,
Right.
right? And people will then have Harvard courses on this and figure out what people did. And some
Right.
people will come out winners and some will not, right? I personally think, and this is a very important time in point for India in many ways, because I think India can be a very key engine for creation of this future of retail, right? And I think Walmart as an organization has recognized this in many ways. We have one of the strongest investments in India from a retail perspective, as you know, in Flipkart, and of course, extremely strong focus in terms of what we are doing. What Flipkart owned businesses like PhonePe and other aspects of it. So, a lot of aspects of digital payment systems is really being truly invented in India, if you look at it, right? So we have a very strong presence from that aspect. We recognize India as a very important market for us, as a very, very growing market for us. So that's a very strong commitment from Walmart from that perspective, which is really great to see. So given, the size of Indian retail business and the pace at which it is becoming digital, both from payment perspective, online perspective, and various other perspective, you'll realize that India will become a very, very critical element for creating the future of retail, right? Second thing is technology is going to be a very key element of this creation of future of retail. And India offers some of the best talent that is out there today in the retail industry. As a result of which, we have very strong presence in terms of what we do in retail in India. In terms of our global center here that we have located for addressing all of our global markets, and really from a technology perspective, we are a global company. We look for global talent anywhere in the world, and we are getting great talent out of India. As a result of which, India is an investment area for us. US is a fantastic investment area for us. We are going after talent, whichever market we can get talent in. So as a result of which, it definitely becomes a great important investment area for us, from attracting not just talent but also the market. But I think if you back up and look at it from the perspective of just India being at the center of creating some of these innovations and changes, you will realize that we as a country have great opportunity to offer, and it's not just going to be one company doing it. It's going to be that ecosystem that is out there at play. It's this set of companies here, the Tesco's, the Falabella, the Lowe's, and many other retailers that have very strong presence in India. You'll realize that we learn from each other, we'll teach each other, and we'll realize that we'll create talent pool that will actually move across in terms of all of the companies that are going to be there. And we encourage that aspect of it. And that's really a reason why we've succeeded in the US, in Mexico, in various different markets. So India becomes just that cradle of innovation that I think is going to get created out of what we are trying to do. So look forward, tighten your seatbelts. You're going to see a lot of local players. You're going to see a lot of global players. You're going to see a lot of changes that is going to happen across the board. And of course, being the Fortune 1 company, it becomes both our responsibility as well as a desire for being that change that is going to create the future of retail in whatever we are doing. So if you're in the retail industry, this is what the telecom industry used to be many decades ago. It's what internet industry is going to be, used to be some period of time. You've probably chosen the best industry to create the future in many ways. And being in India, it couldn't have been just a better time for you to be there. So if one of you is not there in the retail industry, try to look for an opportunity to get in and create that change.
Try to
We
poach
all are
people
going to do it.
using that as a way to get people in from a talent standpoint as well, Rohit. So great points there, right? Though market, talent, ecosystem. According to you, India is going to be at the center when it comes to change in retail. And as a result, this is the place to be. Right. So I think a collection of really, really great points from all our panelists. We'll move right now in the last 20 minutes towards the open discussion, the questions and answers that will come from the audience. So there are a fair number that have been asked right now, and I think a couple of them have been answered, but we'll take a few of these, right? So one of the questions asked is, when it comes to adoption of technologies like Scan, Bag, and Go, what are the normal impediments that are coming in from both the retailer as well as the customer standpoint? Would any of you like to pick up this question and put your answer forward on it? I'll leave it open in terms of.
I can go in this. We've tried this in various different formats, right? And I think one of the typical aspects of this is that the Scan, Bag, and Go is not just a technology aspect of it. It has a user training aspect of it associated with it. It has things like shrink usage with it, with people taking stuff away from your stores without actually paying for it. It has aspect of many times privacy. That people don't want these things to be happening to them. So it's really about looking at it from a 360-degree perspective. It's education of the customer. It's making sure that it's effective for the customer, for the retailer, to ensure that there's no shrink. It is about technology to make sure that we continuously bring unintrusive technology to the place for us to be able to both help the customers and ensure that we keep the environment safe. And we've tried it in many different. We have, for example, it has been extremely successful in our Sam's Club environment, which is really membership based, where we know our customer really, really well, right? It has been very effective in certain areas, in things like stores where we have a much better knowledge about what the customer is doing. It has been less effective in areas where we don't know much about the customers, and there is a mechanism in which people are not really educated about what they are trying to do. So this is a technology that's going to evolve as we go along, right? It's not just one size fits all, that you'll put 10,000 cameras and everything will work, right? Just magically. So different e-tailers are trying it in different ways. And I love that, because in the end, everybody will learn something from it, and we'll all learn from each other and figure out what works and what doesn't work. And in various different formats, you will see more and more of this play out as we go along. But one, most important change that is irreversible is really digital payment of it. That is definitely a change that is going to be completely irreversible, that will continue to move and more towards digital. And this is an interesting area where India has been a lot more innovation hub in some of these areas in terms of what we are trying to do. So you'll see some of these changes go back.
Yes, I mean, when you look at that technology, Tanmoy, as well, and I answered it earlier also in the webinar, was the fact that, see, the weighing scales, when you talk about fresh foods, it's an ecosystem. Yeah, I mean, the weighing scales, the label printing, all of these aspects is an ecosystem when you try to scan it. And for return customers, once you get used to the process, it is great, as Rohit said. But for the first time customers, the colleagues will have to adjust the process. They might have to verify either algorithmically or through process. So it is little intrusive, where you might say that I'm being checked upon, versus the fact that selling this whole concept to the consumer, and then in variety of concepts of the products, and then getting that data to really work for us, it is an evolving and iterative process. You can't get it correct, with the shrink being a very big portion of it, Rohit, from that point of view. You just simply can't get it right on first day. But yes, digital payments, cashless, contactless, app and scan, this is something which is, like, I believe India is at forefront of it, from what I can see and experience personally as a consumer even. And so are the other markets.
Got it. Another question, I think, is around any insights on how phygital retail technology is going to shape the world of retail. I think, Manish, you had brought up a point on phygital while you were speaking. So is this a question you might want to take up in terms of how phygital is going to shape retail going forward?
Sure. So I think I put some thoughts on the answer as well. But to me, I think as Rohit said, channel doesn't matter. What matters is a customer experience, right? I think phygital is another word which just means that, right? Now, when you say phygital, it doesn't mean, where does the journey start? Journey can start in physical world and end in digital world, or journey can start in digital world and can end in physical world, right? I think now when you look at customer interactions and the customer flows across these different aspects, different customer touch points, then you can say, hey, this is how I can do phygital. Like for an example, in our home improvement store, and in current COVID times, when I'm buying something and I need an expert advice, can I call a expert from a store, and I give that experience, right? Like small use cases, right? Now, of course, we can talk about scan and go also as a phygital experience, right? But to me, what is important is to study every dimension of customer touch point and then talk about phygital, right? And that's where the innovation is happening. Also, the fundamental philosophy, or which I feel in a phygital, is a platform. Until unless you have a common platform and a platform strategy which is flexible and scalable in the sense of bringing new things, because technology is changing at a pace where every 2 years something new might come, but you can't change a platform every 2 years, right? It's been taken years to move from monolith to even to what we say microservices based architecture today, right? All of us are, right? It's taken years, and we are still in the journey as a LATAM, as a geography, right? We are way behind on our leaders in US, right? So to build the platforms today in a way that can be flexible for coming experiences is going to be key to achieve phygital, in my mind.
Yeah, let me add something to that, Tanmoy. I think even from a home improvement perspective, right? I think when you're doing something with your home, right, it's highly emotional also, right? There are a lot of sentiments attached, right? So, and let's say you're ordering a door, right, or you're ordering windows, right, which are custom made, and you want to see how those really look, right? And even for appliances, for paints, right, for electricals, right? So there are so many things, right? So I think for us also, phygital is going to be a key concept where stores will continue to play a key role, including our associates, right? They're highly trained, they're knowledgeable, right? And if you are picking up a project, right, on your own, which happens a lot in US, right? The DIY is a huge market, as I mentioned, right? 50%, almost $450 billion are spent on DIY, right? So associates have to be knowledgeable enough, right? Our contact center associates have to be knowledgeable enough to help our customers. But there is a lot of innovation also happening because of COVID, right? So there's an app, right, which is built for our pro customers, and that app uses augmented reality, where if you have a maintenance issue in your home, you can use the app can use the video technology to take the measurements on its own, scan the labels, right, pass it on back to the contractor or the person helping you fix that issue, order parts, right, and as well as help the customer in isolation fix that issue if possible. So I think all these technologies, as well as your stores and online channels, are going to work hand in hand and will continue to evolve.
Got it, Amit. The next question that has been asked is around consumption, specifically with regards to the customers. So one being the fact that consumption patterns themselves have changed a fair bit in COVID. I mean, you had customers essentially buying products and segments that they may not have originally done so, whereas they may have repressed spending in other areas as well, right? Plus, there's another question on income for customers as well that's related, so I'll ask it along. That since the income of some of your customers is also under pressure and they weren't willing to spend as much as they would have been previously, as retailers, were you doing something to ensure that they were getting more value as well, right? So one, from a consumption standpoint, how are you ensuring that their demand that they had was being fulfilled? And also in terms of value, was there something that you did to ensure they were getting the right kind of value from the products? Abhishek, would you like to take this up as a question, perhaps? Or
Yeah. So earlier in the discussion, I did tell you, right? So from a consumption standpoint, getting the predictability is an important aspect, and how we have started to innovate on the supply chain side in terms of building the supply chain muscle, not only globally, as Manish pointed out, even from the local point of view, and then trying to see that we take the slots, the delivery, and the consumption pattern all into account in order to see that the ranges online and offline are available at all times, and feeding our forecasting models with clustering algorithms and other aspects has been an important thing. So if you talk about the consumption, there is a lot of history behind us, as well as the unpredictability which the demands have created. The basket size have grown larger, and we are supplementing it with more data modeling to improve accuracy and forecasting. I mean, there's a lot of stuff of innovation which is happening in the Bangalore Engineering Center, which is offsetting that. Again, to the fact, giving a common platform view, like Manish said, right? I mean, stock will come through one single source of truth. Yeah. So same is kind with the price, same is kind with the promotion. It cannot be that an online stock and promotion is different than an offline stock and promotion. So getting that unified view to the platform is, after that, it is about solutions and being accurate with your data. So that is on the consumption pattern. I did like to answer on that one. Yeah.
Got it. Rohit, I think I'll ask that question to you as well, because from a category standpoint, Walmart being present across the board, right? What did you witness in this area, like in this particular domain?
Yeah, I think I briefly touched upon this earlier as well. I think the key aspect is going to be price sensitivity, given some of the things that we focus on.
Right.
Like I said, everyday low price has been a very important aspect of it. Ensuring that our entire range of products are move a little bit more from first party to a much more third party model, to ensure that we can have a much better supplier base from which we can help customers, and the substitution part of it that I mentioned as well, reiterating that to say, how do we actually make sure that the customers' personalized demands are met in a way in which they get products that may not be available, but a similar one is available, and how it is available are things that we have heavily invested in and help our customers with that.
Got it. I think we'll take up two more questions before closing out the session, so to speak. But one question, in fact, is around. So retailers ended up making an accelerated investment in the last 1 year or so to cater to the needs of consumers. Do you see some of these investments becoming an overspend in some ways, right, when it comes to digital transformation? Do you see some of these becoming, maybe not as important in the years, going forward? Open question, I think. Any one of you can pick it up and answer. So
I think so. I would like to calibrate the question here. Making investment is a broad term. Okay. Right. Assumption that all has been made in consumer is basically a factual error there, because when we are making investments, we are, as I told you earlier, I mean, we might be making investments in efficiency and calibrating our processes. Right. So those investments are definitely there to pay off, whether you are putting it into the platform, whether you are building your muscle power by improving efficiency, or whether you are basically targeting the productivity gains. I mean, I'll give you small examples of how such thing can happen from the investments, why we make in such areas. A specific example is, the behavior is changing of the customer as it comes along from a macro factor. Now, if you try to have, you have a range on a shelf, yeah? Now, this range you have given from a planogram perspective and put it out there. Now, suddenly you have got a supply which has come in and you want to put it on the shelf because you are seeing that there is consumption which has increased. Now, this is totally off the process of the range, right? How do you bring more and more out of process behavior within the process between an offline-online world from a overall point of view of how we look at our retail operations? And the investments we make in the retail operations, they are all there to be paid at the end of the day, because they are long-term investments towards efficiency gains, productivity, which means that they are going to boost your bottom line from that point of view. That would be my input to that one.
Got it.
It's a good question in many ways. And my theory fundamentally is that investments in technology or things that you do, which are forward-looking investments. I'm not saying go back and buy a bunch of mainframe machines and start investing in them. But the fundamental thing is, if you put investment in technology, usually these investments are not necessarily the problem. The problem typically where you go wrong is investment in business models that you hardwire into your mind, right? So technology is just a mechanism, or anything that you do there is a mechanism towards a business model. So if you invested in a business model saying, forget everything, I'm only going to be an online retailer, I don't care about anything else, then you're in tough times. Go back and say, I'm going to be only physical, I don't really care about doing anything online, you're in tough times. But if you invested in key aspects of technology that helps you there and build your platforms, you'll realize that you can serve them towards the evolving business model as it goes along. Right. So always in your mind, think about making sound investments. And sometimes the investments pay out later, sometimes the investment pay out quicker. But if you build a great base, you can really, it's like If you study great computer science, you'll be able to put it in need of writing software for phone or building greatest middleware. But the fundamental aspect is those investments are important. The business models will continue to evolve on top.
Got it. So technology will always pay forward. It's just investing in the smart areas.
Did we
lose Tanmoy?
Taking up, and I think I do Amit, right? So there's a question around. Hello.
Yeah, you're back now.
Yeah, I think there was a lag.
I'm back now.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Right. So there's a question that I think that's been asked to Amit, for the rural sector. So I'll pose this to Amit. How are challenges of digital transformation adoption in rural markets addressed? And you mentioned that Lowe's has a fairly significant presence in non-urban areas. So is this a question that you might want to pick up?
Yeah, sure. So I think, although from a technology perspective, right, in US, right, in the rural segment as well, we see a lot of sales happening through our offline channel, right? And even now, right, as we speak, we found that, our store traffic hasn't significantly gone down from a rural, population perspective. We did see that because of restrictions and, other norms that came in, the urban market has seen a significant impact from a store traffic perspective. But if you look at it, from an investment standpoint, right, that customers are still trying to look at how they leverage their home space, right? And it's common. I think, a lot of shift has happened from people moving away from urban markets into rural markets. We have seen that also happen. But that, in turn, that also causes that people eventually start setting up their bases away from urban areas. We have seen that shift also happen. So I would say from a digital standpoint, our investments are similar, right? From a store standpoint or from an online standpoint. And I don't think it kind of, disrupts anything from a customer leverage perspective.
Understood. So I think with that, we'll probably close the session out. Thank you, first of all, to all of our speakers for coming in, sharing your insights, your inputs with the audience. It is great having all of you on board. And just 1 second. Yeah. So great having all of you on board. And, we hope to host you again at some point in time as well. Similarly, for the audience, we hope that, you managed to get some pretty good insights from the session and you learned a lot as well along the way. We will be sharing the deck from the session with all the participants. As we mentioned before, any questions on the report, please do reach out to us at insights@zinnov.com or reach out to Prashant and we'll be happy to help you out. Similarly, any questions for the panelists, please do reach out to Prashant and he'll try to forward them to you. But otherwise, apart from that, thank everyone for coming in. We hope you stay safe, have a good week, and, take care, everyone. Good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
everyone.
Bye.